So on the screen now, I've got an image that shows the effects of cellulite. This is common. You see it, most women have this in some degree or another. Often it can be found on the upper arms, around the buttocks area, upper thighs, and even sometimes in the lower legs as well. So if you're doing a body shot, someone in swimwear or gym wear, or even pregnancy shoots, even if they're fit and lean, they'll probably still have some evidence of cellulite. Now, it's your call as a photographer and also the client. If it's something that bothers them, then you can minimize it. There are lots of different ways to do this. No, so some people suggest frequency separation is the way to go. It's quite time consuming, and if you're doing an entire body and you've got several images to edit, this can take a lot of time. So basically, this is the steps that I take to minimize the look of cellulite in an image. So the first thing I do is, with my image opened in Photoshop, I'm going to create a new empty layer. So it's this little icon here, and create a new empty layer. And then basically the first thing I want to do is just minimize some of the larger, darker areas here. So basically what I'm going to do is, with the clone stamp selected, I'm going to change my blend mode from normal to lighten, and I'm just going to go over some of the larger areas, just cloning over those. The more obvious, and it's just a matter of going over those quickly. So basically, and you could do this if you wanted to and you had all the time in the world, you could also do this with a bit of burning and dodging. So just going and getting rid of some of the bigger sort of areas of cellulite. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is create another new empty layer. I like to keep everything sort of in individual layers, so in case you make a mistake, you can go back and edit that mistake. So I'm just going to do this leg here for this exercise. So the way I do it is it's kind of like airbrushing the image overall. So what I'm going to do is select a brush. I'm going to come down and make sure my brush is set to 0 hardness. I'm going to change my blend mode again to lighten, opacity 100%, and I'm going to drop my flow all the way down to 5%. Now, with the opacity 100% and flow at 5%, it means I can build on this layer. So the more I brush over, the more it builds up. So basically, what I'm going to do is, it's basically airbrushing, and because I've got my blend mode set to lighten, it's only going to add paint or color to the darker areas, and it should leave the lighter areas alone. So you're going to get a sort of a more natural look. So what we're trying to do is to make this, to even out this skin tone, is make the darks a little bit lighter so that they look more like the lighter areas, so that you're going to get less of an effect of that sort of crinkly skin look, and just even it out a bit more. We don't want to go too extreme because it looks fake. You just want to maybe reduce it by 50% so that when the client looks at it, they go, well, that's not too bad. And so basically what I'm going to do is select a lighter area of skin. So I've got my brush selected. I'm holding down the Option key on a Mac, Alt on a Windows, and you can see the little color picker comes up. Select the area. Now have a look here in the color boxes here. You'll see the foreground color will change to that skin tone. Okay, so now that's the skin tone that I've selected. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, and basically I'm just going to start brushing over those areas. And so what's happening is, it's going over the darker areas and it's leaving the lighter areas alone. And so I can come along now and sort of brush in. Now, if I was doing this for reals, I'd probably get rid of all the little hairs there as well. So, but for this example, we're just going to do the skin. And so I'm just going over the middle area here with the brush and just lightening that. So let's have a look. So you got before and after, all right? And then I'm going to come up to this area here, select a lighter area and just go over some of that. And then this area here, because it's a shadow where the sort of the buttocks meets the leg, I'm going to select a darker shade. So you can see when I select that foreground color here is going to change to the darker color. See how it's darker now? And now I'll just make my brush a little bit smaller and I'm just going to go over this area. So it's airbrushing. Imagine if you had this for real at home. So there we go. And so now I'm just going over the darker areas. So again, if it's even darker, I'm going to select this tone here. And that's now a much darker tone. And I'm going to come down this part of the leg here. All right. And then I'm going to just do this middle part here and just get rid of some of these. And along the side here. All right, so hopefully I'm, retaining some of the natural sort of skin isn't all just one color. There's like different tones in there. So we want to kind of maintain that, but we just want to minimize a lot of the divots and things like that. So once I've got something that I'm happy with, and I'm just going to toggle on and off so you can see. So there's before, there's after. So already we've gotten rid of, we've evened out the skin tone a bit. In doing so, what we've also done is just taken away the texture of the skin. So it starts to look fake. And so we've got a bit more up here that I can clean up. Just get rid of some of this discoloration here. All right, so now what I want to do is add some texture back in. And so if you have a look here on the side, the texture of the skin, it's like almost like natural like goose pimples or all of that. What I've found is I do have a natural skin texture, but it doesn't look as good as using a texture from the texture pack, which is actually the texture taken off a concrete wall. And that's what I use to replace skin texture. So in the download section of the Gold community, there is the Gold texture pack where you can download this if you don't have it already, and you're free to use these textures, or you can start making your own. Okay, so to add the texture to my edited section of the image here, what I need to do is go to File, Place Embedded. You get a little dialog box that comes in, and you're going to need to search through for where you've got your texture pack stored. And what I like to use as a good skin texture is I find that texture 24 fine. So texture number 24 fine is a good representation of skin texture. So I'm going to place it there. Now, once you've got it in place, it's covering the entire image. I'm just going to stretch it out, hit OK, and you can see now that it covers the image. Now, there's a couple of issues here. Firstly, the color of the wall is going to influence the look of the overall image. So the first thing I need to do is just get rid of that color. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjust, Hue Saturation, and I'm just going to desaturate that layer. So basically all I've done is gotten rid of that gold tone. Okay. The other issue with this is it's a little bit too dark. So I'm going to show you now. So the next step is so that we reveal this texture on the skin, is to change the blend mode from normal to soft light. Okay. And so let's have a look. We've got before and after. Now, it looks okay, but there's texture over the entire image, and I don't want texture on the pants. I don't want texture on the back wall. I just want the texture on the legs. So the workaround now is to add a layer mask, which is this little icon here, and now invert it or hide it. So if I hit Command I on my keyboard, it's going to change that layer mask from white to black, and it's also going to hide the texture. So if I go back, Command I, you can see the texture, all right? But it's on the entire image. And if I hide it, Command I, it's now not visible. You can't see it. So how do I bring it back? Basically, if I select a soft brush with white as my foreground color, anywhere I paint with my layer mask selected is going to brush that texture. So now I can selectively adjust my skin tone and brush back in some skin texture so it looks like a bit more realistic. So just with a soft brush, opacity 100%, I've got my flow up to 50%. I can now start brushing in some texture, and I can drop it back a little bit if I think that's too strong. And you can also vary it, because if you look at normal skin, it's there's some areas where there's texture, and some area, like generally the buttocks, because it doesn't see a lot of sunlight, it's not going to have, the pores aren't going to be as large. So you can vary the flow so you get like different levels of texture. But see how that's bringing back the skin tone? And then like I find that sort of in creases, you might want to increase the texture and add it in different areas. But that's basically how you can clean up a skin tone pretty quickly. Now, I was talking through most of that, but if you were just doing it and you got used to it and you were banging out lots of images, you could do this quite quickly. So I just want to show you before and after. So we've got, and there are still some areas there. You don't want it to look like a before and after image for a cellulite clinic, because that's just not right. And you want it to look natural, believable, so you need to leave some of the texture there. But basically, what we've done is we've removed a lot of the cellulite there. You can see in this other leg here, and retained the skin texture there. So I think that's a really quick and easy way just to smooth out cellulite on the legs or even the upper arms.